The handcuffs clicked tight against his wrists, the cold metal biting into his skin. 150 passengers watched in stunned silence, dozens of phones raised, recording the humiliation of a black man in a hoodie being dragged off a flight he had every right to be on. The flight attendant, Stacy, stood with her arms crossed, a smug look of victory on her face. She thought she was removing a security threat. She thought she was protecting the sanctity of first class. What she didn't realize was that she wasn't just kicking off a passenger. She was evicting the man who had secretly purchased the entire airline 3 hours ago. She was about to learn a brutal lesson. Never judge a king by his casual clothes. The rain lashed against the reinforced glass of JFK's Terminal 4, turning the tarmac into a blurry watercolor of gray and steel. Inside the first-class lounge of Zenith Airways, the atmosphere was a stark contrast. Hushed tones, the clink of crystal, and the scent of expensive espresso. Rowan Sterling sat in the corner, far away from the buffet and the bar. He wasn't wearing the bespoke Italian suits that usually graced the cover of Forbes or TechCrunch. Today, Rowan wore a charcoal hoodie, faded denim jeans, and a pair of beat-up sneakers that had seen better days. He had an oversized pair of noise-cancelling headphones around his neck and a battered leather rucksack at his feet. To the casual observer, he looked like a tired college student who had perhaps snuck in, or maybe a musician trying too hard to look low-key. To Stacy Miller, the lead flight attendant for Flight 402 to London, he looked like a problem. Stacy was walking through the lounge, taking a shortcut to the gate, when she spotted him. She paused, her eyes narrowing. She adjusted her Zenith Airways scarf, a garish purple silk knot that marked her seniority, and frowned. She had been flying for 20 years. She prided herself on her radar, an internal alarm system she claimed could spot a trouble before it boarded. "Unbelievable," she muttered to David, a junior steward walking beside her. "Look at that. The standards are slipping every day. How did he even get in here?" David, young and still full of the optimism that the industry hadn't yet crushed out of him, shrugged. Maybe he has status or a credit card pass. "With those shoes," Stacy scoffed, her voice low but venomous. "Please. He probably slipped in when the receptionist was distracted. He doesn't belong here, David, and he certainly doesn't belong in my cabin." Rowan didn't hear them. He was too busy scrolling through a PDF on his phone, the final acquisition documents for Zenith Airways. It was a deal that had been kept under extreme wraps. Zenith was failing. The service was plummeting. The stocks were in the toilet, and the board was desperate. Rowan, through his holding company, had swooped in that morning. The ink was barely dry. Technically, as of 9:15 a.m., he owned every seat, every bolt, and every packet of peanuts on the plane sitting at gate B12. But he hadn't announced it yet. He wanted to see the truth first. He wanted to know why Zenith was failing. He wanted to see the culture the CEO bragged about. He stood up, slinging his rucksack over one shoulder, and headed for the gate. Stacy watched him go, pulling out her phone. She texted the gate agent, "Brenda. Keep an eye on the guy in the hoodie. Looks suspicious. Check his ticket twice." At the gate, the boarding process was chaotic. The priority lane was blocked by a family arguing about carry-on limits. Rowan stood patiently in the first-class line. When he reached the podium, Brenda, a woman who looked like she hadn't smiled since the late 90s, snatched his boarding pass without looking at him. She scanned it. The machine beeped green. Seat 1A. Brenda paused. She looked at the screen, then at Rowan, Then back at the screen. She tapped her keyboard aggressively. "Is there a problem?" Rowan asked, his voice calm, deep, and polite. "Hold on," Brenda snapped. She picked up the landline phone. "Stacy?" "Yeah, it's Brenda, the hoodie guy. System says 1A. Yeah, full fare." I know. It must be an upgrade glitch or something." "Okay, I'll send him down, but you handle it." She slammed the phone down and thrust the boarding pass back at him. "Board. Left side." "No, have a nice flight." "No, thank you for flying, Zenith." "Just dismissal." Rowan took the pass. A faint, sad smile touched his lips. "So this is how we treat people," he thought. "This is why we're losing money." He walked down the jet bridge, the humidity rising. He stepped onto the plane, turning left into the hallowed sanctuary of first class. It was a 1-2-1 configuration, very private. He found 1A, a window seat, and tossed his rucksack into the overhead bin. "Excuse me." A sharp voice cut through the air. Rowan turned. Stacy was standing there, blocking the aisle. Up close, her makeup was a little too thick, cracking slightly around the eyes where the cynicism had set in. She was holding a manifest, tapping it with a pen. "Yes," Rowan said. "That bin is reserved for first-class passengers," Stacy said, her voice loud enough for the business travelers settling in behind them to hear. Rowan blinked. "I know. I'm in 1A." Stacy let out a short, incredulous laugh. She didn't check the manifest. She just looked at him, up and down, lingering on the hoodie. "Sir, I think you're confused. Economy is to the right. Row 1A is usually reserved for our premium clientele. If you have an upgrade, you need to double-check, because sometimes the system assigns seats that aren't actually available." "My ticket says 1A, Rowan said, keeping his cool. He pulled the boarding pass from his pocket and held it out. Stacy didn't take it. She just glanced at it. "Sir, I need you to step out of the aisle so I can board the actual first-class passengers. Why don't you go find your seat in the back, and once boarding is done, if this seat is empty, we can discuss it." The disrespect was palpable. It wasn't just rude, it was a power play. She was banking on him being submissive, on him feeling out of place. "I paid for this seat," Rowan said, his voice hardening slightly. "I'm not going to the back. I'm sitting in 1A. He sat down, buckled his seatbelt, and put his headphones back on. Stacy stood there, her mouth slightly open. Her authority had been challenged, her face turned a blotchy shade of red. She leaned down, invading his personal space. "You listen to me," she hissed. "I am the lead flight attendant on this aircraft. If I tell you to move, you move. You are causing a disturbance." Rowan lifted one ear cup. "I'm sitting in my assigned seat. The only one causing a disturbance is you." Stacy straightened up, her eyes flashing. "Okay. Have it your way." She turned on her heel and marched toward the cockpit. Rowan watched her go. He reached into his pocket and touched his phone. He could end this right now. He could make one call to the Vice President of Operations, who was currently terrified of the new owner. No, Rowan thought. Let it play out. I need to see how deep the rot goes. 10 minutes passed. The plane was filling up. A heavy-set man in a suit sat in 1K across the aisle, eyeing Rowan with open suspicion, clutching his briefcase as if Rowan might telekinetically steal it. Stacy returned. She wasn't alone. She was accompanied by the captain. Captain James O'Connell was a tall man with silver hair and the weary look of someone who just wanted to get to London and sleep. "Sir," the captain said, his voice booming, "the flight attendant tells me you're refusing to follow crew instructions." Rowan took off his headphones completely this time. "I'm refusing to vacate the seat I purchased, Captain. I haven't broken any rules. I haven't raised my voice. I'm just sitting." Stacy interjected, her voice shrill. "He's been aggressive, Captain. He threw his bag into the bin, nearly hitting me, and when I asked to see his ticket, he told me to back off. I don't feel safe with him in my cabin." It was a lie. A blatant, dangerous lie. Rowan looked at Stacy, genuinely shocked by the fabrication. "That is completely false. The cameras in the terminal will show—" "We are not checking cameras," Stacy snapped. "This is my cabin. Captain, I am telling you, he is a threat to the safety of this flight. I will not close the doors with him sitting there." The captain looked at Rowan. He saw the hoodie. He saw the defiance. He didn't see a billionaire. He saw a delay. "Sir," the captain sighed, "I don't have time for this. If the crew doesn't feel safe, you have to go. You can sort it out with the gate agent. Grab your bag." "I'm not getting off this plane," Rowan said, his voice dropping an octave. "I have a board meeting in London tomorrow morning. I bought a full-fare first-class ticket. I have done nothing wrong except look different than what she expects." "It's not about how you look," Stacy shouted, effectively drawing the attention of the entire front cabin. "It's about your attitude. You people always think you can do whatever you want." "You people?" The air in the cabin seemed to freeze. The man in 1K looked away, uncomfortable. Rowan stared at her. "Excuse me. What do you mean by you people?" Stacy realized she had slipped. She doubled down. "Passengers who think the rules don't apply to them. Now get off, or I'm calling the police." "Call them," Rowan said, leaning back. "I'll wait." Stacy stormed to the interphone. The captain shook his head, looking at Rowan with disdain. "You're making a big mistake, son. You're going to end up on the no-fly list." "We'll see who ends up on a list," Rowan murmured. While they waited for the authorities, Rowan texted his assistant, Eleanor. "Get the legal team on standby, and find me the employment file for a Stacy Miller, flight attendant, Zenith Airways. Also, get the Port Authority police chief on the line. Tell him it's Rowan Sterling." The wait was agonizing. Passengers were grumbling. "Come on, buddy, just get off so we can leave," a man in row 2 shouted. "Selfish," a woman whispered. Rowan sat like a statue. He was burning with humiliation, but he used it. He fueled it. He needed this to happen so he could tear it down and build it back up. Then, the blue lights flashed against the wet tarmac outside. The jet bridge door opened. 2 Port Authority officers walked on. One was an older sergeant, Officer Kowalski, and the other a rookie. They looked serious. "Where is he?" Kowalski asked. Stacy pointed a manicured finger at Rowan like an accusation of murder. "There. Seat 1A. He's refusing to deboard. He's been verbally abusive, and he made a threatening motion toward me." Kowalski walked up to 1A. He put a hand on his belt. "Sir, you need to grab your belongings and come with us. Now." "I haven't done anything, officer," Rowan said calmly. "I'm the victim of profiling here." "Sir, the airline has the right to refuse service to anyone." Kowalski recited the standard line. "If they want you off, you get off. You can sue them later. But right now, you are trespassing on a private aircraft. Stand up." Rowan looked at the officer. "I'm not trespassing. I own the seat. Sir, stand up or we will assist you." Rowan took a deep breath. He stood up slowly. He didn't want to resist arrest. That would complicate things. He raised his hands. "Fine, I'm complying." As he stepped into the aisle, Stacy smirked. She actually smiled. "Make sure you ban him," she told the officer. "I don't want to see him on a return flight." "Turn around," Kowalski said. Rowan turned. He felt the cold steel of the handcuffs click around his wrists. The sound was loud in the quiet cabin. Click, click. The humiliation was total. Paraded down the aisle of a plane he owned, in cuffs, while the employee he paid watched with glee. As they marched him toward the door, Rowan stopped next to Stacy. He looked her dead in the eye. "You really should have checked the passenger manifest more carefully, Stacy," Rowan said softly. "Get moving." The officer shoved him gently. "I checked it," Stacy laughed, crossing her arms. "It said, Rowan Sterling. Doesn't mean anything to me, just another disruptive passenger." Rowan smiled. It was a terrifying smile. "It will." They dragged him off the plane. The door closed, the lock engaged. Stacy let out a dramatic sigh of relief, turning to the cabin. "I apologize for the delay, ladies and gentlemen. We simply cannot compromise on safety. We'll be in the air shortly. Champagne for everyone before takeoff?" The passengers cheered. They thought the villain was gone. But in the jet bridge, the dynamic was about to shift. Because as they walked Rowan up the ramp, his phone, which the officer was holding, buzzed. It was a text from the Chief of Port Authority Police. "Dispatch alert. The man you have in custody is the owner of Zenith Airways. Release him immediately and apologize. The governor is on line 2. Officer Kowalski's phone rang at the exact same time. He answered it, annoyed. "Kowalski." "Yeah, we got him. We're bringing him to processing." He listened for 3 seconds. All the color drained from his face. He stopped walking. He looked at the phone, then at the rookie, then at the handcuffed man in the hoodie. "Say that again," Kowalski whispered into the phone. He swallowed hard. He hung up. His hand started shaking. He looked at Rowan. Rowan raised an eyebrow. "You get the call?" Rowan asked. "Sir," Kowalski's voice cracked. "Mr. Sterling, uncuff me," Rowan said. "And then you're going to help me get back on that plane. I have an announcement to make." The silence in the jet bridge was heavier than the humid air outside. Officer Kowalski's hands, usually steady from 20 years of breaking up bar fights and patrolling terminals, fumbled with the small silver key. Click. The handcuffs sprang open. Rowan rubbed his wrists, the red indentations clearly visible against his skin. He didn't say a word. He just looked at the 2 officers. The rookie looked like he was about to vomit. Kowalski looked like he was watching his pension evaporate. "Mr. Sterling," Kowalski stammered, sweating profusely now. The protocol is usually strict. We rely on the flight crew's assessment. She said you were violent. She lied," Rowan said, his voice cutting through the excuses like a laser. "And you didn't ask a single question. You saw a black man in a hoodie in first class, and you saw a white woman in a uniform pointing a finger. The math was easy for you, wasn't it?" Kowalski opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. There was no defense. "What do you want us to do, sir? Do you want to file a formal complaint? We can take you to the VIP lounge while we sort this out." "No," Rowan said. He adjusted his hoodie, pulling it down to neaten his appearance. He picked up his rucksack from where the rookie had dropped it. "I don't want a lounge. I want to go to London, and I want to finish the conversation I was having with Miss Miller." "But, sir," the rookie piped up. "The door is closed. The jet bridge is retracting. The plane is about to push back." Rowan turned to the closed aircraft door. Through the small porthole window, he could see the flight attendants moving about, oblivious to the storm that was about to hit them. "Then tell them to open it," Rowan said. "They won't open it for a passenger, sir. It's FAA regulation," Kowalski said, weaky. Rowan turned his phone screen toward them. It showed a direct line open with the CEO of the Port Authority. "I'm not asking as a passenger. I'm asking as the owner of the airline. Order the bridge operator to reconnect. Order the captain to open the door. If they refuse, tell them you are boarding to conduct an emergency security review." Kowalski nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. He keyed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4 Alpha. Hold the pushback on Flight 402. Repeat, hold pushback. We are redocking the bridge. We have, sensitive new information regarding the incident." Inside the plane, the fasten seatbelt sign had just dinged on. The engines were humming, vibrating through the floorboards. Stacy was in the galley, popping the cork on a bottle of Dom Perignon, laughing with David. "Did you see his face?" she giggled, pouring the golden liquid into flutes. "God, I love it when they try to act tough. I'm not moving." "Yeah, well, you moved pretty fast when the cuffs came out." David looked uneasy. "I don't know, Stace. He seemed really calm, like weirdly calm. Usually people scream. He just stared." "Psychopaths are always calm, David," Stacy said dismissively, placing the glasses on a tray. "Forget him. He's probably in a holding cell by now, getting processed. He'll miss his board meeting, or whatever lie he told. Now, let's go smooth things over with Mr. Henderson in 1K. He looked rattled." She picked up the tray and turned toward the curtain. Suddenly the plane shuddered. It wasn't the engines, it was the distinct, heavy thud of the jet bridge reconnecting to the fuselage. Stacy frowned. "What the hell? We're pushing back." The interphone chimed. It was the cockpit. Stacy grabbed it. "Captain?" "Stacy, what is going on back there?" Captain O'Connell sounded furious. "Ground control just told us to hold. The bridge is coming back. Did you leave someone behind? Is the door secure?" "The door is armed and cross-checked, Captain. I don't know." Bam! 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 3 heavy knocks on the exterior of the aircraft door echoed through the front galley. It was a sound that no flight attendant ever wanted to hear after the doors were sealed. It usually meant a bomb threat, a medical emergency, or a federal raid. Stacy's face went pale. She looked at the door. "Captain, someone is banging on the door." "Open it," the captain ordered. "Ground says it's the police again. Maybe they forgot to take his bag." Stacy let out a huff of annoyance. "Unbelievable. This guy is haunting us." She set the champagne tray down. "David, disarm the door. I'll handle this." David moved the lever to disarm. Stacy looked through the peephole. She saw Officer Kowalski. She unlocked the door and swung it open, ready to scold the police officer for delaying her schedule. "Officer, really?" she snapped, standing in the doorway. "We are 3 minutes behind schedule. Unless he left a kidney on board, I don't see why." Her voice died in her throat. Standing behind Officer Kowalski, looking relaxed and utterly unbothered, was the man in the hoodie. Rowan Sterling stepped past the police officer. He didn't look at the floor. He didn't look at the wall. He looked directly at Stacy. "I believe," Rowan said, his voice smooth and carrying effortlessly into the quiet first-class cabin, "that I still have a seat on this plane." Stacy blocked his path physically. Her brain couldn't process what was happening. Her radar was jamming. "You? No, absolutely not. You are banned. Officer, why is he loose? I told you to arrest him." Kowalski stepped up, looking sheepish but firm. "Ms. Miller, step aside. Mr. Sterling is boarding this aircraft." "Mr. Sterling?" Stacy repeated the name, mocking it. "I don't care if he's Mr. Universe. He is a security threat. Captain!" She screamed toward the cockpit door. "The prisoner is trying to reboard." Passengers were craning their necks. The man in 1K stood up. "Hey, what is this? Get him off!" Rowan ignored the passenger. He looked at Stacy, who was trembling with rage. She put her hand on his chest to push him back. It was a fatal mistake. "Don't touch me," Rowan said. He didn't yell. He didn't need to. The authority in his voice was absolute. "You are trespassing," Stacy shrieked. "You are endangering this flight." "Actually," Rowan said, stepping into the galley and forcing her to retreat backward, "I'm inspecting it." The commotion had brought the captain out of the cockpit. Captain O'Connell, a man who had flown Air Force jets and navigated hurricanes, looked confused and angry. He saw the police. He saw Stacy red-faced and hyperventilating, and he saw Rowan. "Officer!" O'Connell barked. "What is the meaning of this? Why is this man not in a cell?" "Because, Captain," Kowalski said, his voice loud enough for the first 5 rows to hear. "We made a mistake, a big one. And unless you want to be arrested for unlawful imprisonment, I suggest you let the man speak." O'Connell paused. The word "arrested" threw him off. He looked at Rowan. "Who are you?" Rowan walked past Stacy, past the captain, and picked up the public address interphone from the wall mount. Stacy lunged for him. "Put that down! You cannot use the PA! That is for crew only!" She tried to grab the cord, but the rookie police officer stepped in between them. "Ma'am, back away! Do not interfere!" Stacy gasped. The police were protecting him. Rowan pressed the button. The chime echoed through the entire plane, from the luxe seats of row 1 to the cramped benches in row 45. Ding-dong. The cabin went silent. Everyone was listening to the drama unfolding in the front. "Ladies and gentlemen," Rowan began. His voice was calm, articulate, and commanded attention. "My name is Rowan Sterling. Some of you in the front cabin just watched me be handcuffed and dragged off this plane because the lead flight attendant, Ms. Miller, decided that my appearance, my hoodie and my skin color, made me a security threat." A murmur went through the plane. Stacy was shaking her head violently, mouthing "liar" to the passengers in the front row. "I was accused of being aggressive," Rowan continued, his eyes locked on Stacy. "I was accused of refusing to follow instructions, but the reality is, I was simply sitting in the seat I paid for." "Turn it off!" Stacy screamed at the captain. "Captain, cut the power! He's hijacking the PA!" The captain didn't move. He was staring at Rowan. He was staring at the name Sterling. The memo. He remembered the memo from this morning. Acquisition alert. Zenith Airways acquired by Sterling Holdings. CEO, Rowan Sterling. The color drained from the captain's face so fast it looked like he was about to faint. Rowan continued, "I am not a security threat. I am not a trespasser. As of 9:00 a.m. this morning, I am the new owner of Zenith Airways." The silence that followed was deafening. It was a vacuum of sound. Stacy stopped screaming. Her mouth hung open. Her eyes went wide, darting from Rowan to the captain. She looked for confirmation, for someone to tell her this was a prank. The captain looked at her. He slowly nodded. "It's him, Stacy. That's the owner." Stacy felt the floor drop out from under her. The arrogance, the smugness, The power, it all evaporated, leaving her standing there as nothing more than a bully who had just punched a god. Rowan lowered the phone slightly, but kept the button pressed. He turned to the cabin. I bought this airline because I believed it had potential, but I wanted to see how it treated its customers when no one was watching, when the cameras weren't rolling, when it was just a guy in a hoodie. He looked at the man in 1K, the one who had cheered when he was arrested. The man was now staring at his shoes, terrified. I found a culture of judgment, Rowan said into the mic, a culture of bias, and a staff that uses security as a weapon to enforce their own prejudices. He turned to Stacy. The phone was still live. The whole plane could hear every breath. "Stacy," Rowan said. She flinched. Mr. Sterling, I didn't know. The system, it didn't say VIP, it just said, it shouldn't have to say VIP, Rowan said, his voice echoing through the overhead speakers. That is the point. You shouldn't need a title to be treated with basic human dignity. You looked at me and you decided I didn't belong. You lied to the captain. You lied to the police. You humiliated me in front of 200 people. I was just trying to keep the flight safe, Stacy whimpered. Tears were starting to well up, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of self-preservation. I've been with Zenith for 20 years. I have a perfect record. You had a perfect record, Rowan corrected. He let go of the PA button. The click signaled the end of the broadcast, but the show wasn't over. He looked at the captain. Captain O'Connell, you have a choice. You can fly this plane to London, or you can get off with Ms. Miller. But she is not working this flight. In fact, she is not working any flight. Ever again. Stacy let out a sob. You can't do that. You can't fire me right here. I have a union. I have rights. You surrendered your rights when you filed a false police report against a passenger, Rowan said coldly. That is a crime, Stacy. And since the police are already here, he gestured to Officer Kowalski. The irony hit the cabin like a sledgehammer. The police were there because she called them. And now they were looking at her. Officer, Rowan said, I would like to file charges for filing a false report, harassment, and defamation. Kowalski nodded. He was eager to make up for his earlier mistake. He pulled out the handcuffs, the same ones that had been on Rowan's wrists 5 minutes ago. Stacy Miller, Kowalski said, stepping forward. Please place your hands behind your back. No! Stacy shrieked, backing into the galley cart. No, you can't. Captain, do something. He's crazy. Captain O'Connell turned his back on her. He walked into the cockpit and began flipping switches. He was saving himself. Stacy looked around wildly. The passengers in first class, the ones she had tried so hard to protect from the guy in the hoodie, were now holding up their phones. They were recording her. The man in 1K was filming. The family in row 2 was filming. She was the content now. Please, she begged Rowan, her voice breaking into a whisper. I have a mortgage. I have kids. Please, Mr. Sterling. I'm sorry. I'll apologize. I'll do anything. Rowan looked at her. For a second, there was a flicker of pity in his eyes. But then he remembered the way she had smiled when the cuffs clicked on him. He remembered the "you people" comment. You should have thought about your mortgage before you tried to ruin an innocent man's life for sport, Rowan said. Get her off my plane. Kowalski spun her around. Click. Click. The sound of the cuffs was the same, but the reaction was different. There were no cheers from the passengers this time, just a stunned, heavy silence as the queen of the cabin was led away in disgrace, weeping loudly, her mascara running down her face in dark, ugly streaks. As she passed Rowan, she couldn't even look at him. She hung her head, the shame crushing her. They dragged her up the jet bridge. Rowan stood in the galley. He took a deep breath. He looked at David, the junior flight attendant who was trembling in the corner. "David, is it?" Rowan asked. Yes, sir," David squeaked. "You're the lead flight attendant now," Rowan said. "Close the door. We have a schedule to keep." The door to the aircraft clicked shut, sealing the cabin from the chaos of JFK. The sound was final. Inside, the atmosphere was thick, suffocatingly quiet. It wasn't the peaceful silence of a luxury flight. It was the terrified silence of a classroom after the teacher has just expelled the class bully. Rowan Sterling sat back down in seat 1A. He didn't gloat. He didn't look around for approval. He simply fastened his seatbelt, pulled his noise-cancelling headphones back over his ears, and opened his laptop. David, the young flight attendant who had been promoted to lead just 30 seconds ago, stood in the galley. He was pale. His hands were shaking so bad the ice tongs he was holding rattled against the metal bucket. He looked at the empty space where Stacy used to be, then at the man in 1A. The plane pushed back. The safety video played. Usually, passengers ignored it, burying their noses in phones or magazines. Today, everyone sat rigid, staring straight ahead, afraid to make a wrong move. They had just seen the owner of the airline arrest a senior crew member. They felt like they were all on trial. As the plane climbed to 30,000 feet, the seatbelt sign pinged off. David took a deep breath. He had to do the service. He walked out to the aisle. Mr. Sterling?" David asked, his voice cracking. Can I get you anything? We have the vintage Dom Perignon, or a Scotch, or—" Rowan looked up. He slid the headphones off. He saw the terror in the kid's eyes. "David," Rowan said gently, "relax." "I'm trying, sir. You've never seen a billionaire in a hoodie get a flight attendant arrested?" Rowan cracked a small smile. "It's a first for me, too." David let out a nervous chuckle. "I'm so sorry about what happened, sir. Stacy, she can be difficult. But I should have said something. I stood there and let it happen." Rowan nodded. "You did. And that's something you're going to have to work on. Leadership isn't about the scarf or the title. It's about speaking up when something is wrong, even if your voice shakes. But today, you're the lead. So, lead. Treat the passengers well. That's all I ask." "Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir." David stood up straighter. "Can I get you a drink?" "Sparkling water with lime. That's it." As David hurried away, a shadow fell over Rowan's seat. It was the man from 1K. The heavy-set guy in the expensive suit who had clutched his briefcase and cheered for the police earlier. His name was Mr. Henderson, a hedge fund manager who was used to being the most important person in the room. Now, he looked like a child caught stealing cookies. "Mr. Sterling," Henderson said, his voice oily and apologetic. "I just wanted to come over and, apologize. Clearly there was a misunderstanding earlier. If I had known who you were—" Rowan cut him off without looking up from his screen. "That's the problem, Mr. Henderson." "Excuse me?" Rowan turned his chair slightly to face him. "You're apologizing because you found out I own the plane. You're apologizing because I have power. If I were just a regular guy from Brooklyn in a hoodie, you'd still be happy I was dragged off in cuffs. You didn't care about justice. You cared about your comfort." Henderson's face flushed red. "Now see here. I was just relying on the crew's assessment." "Save it," Rowan said, turning back to his work. "Enjoy the flight. Try the warm nuts, but don't pretend we're friends." Henderson retreated to his seat, humiliated. An hour later, Captain O'Connell emerged from the cockpit for his rest break. Usually the captain would walk through the cabin, chatting with the high-value flyers, projecting confidence. Today, O'Connell walked like a man marching to the gallows. He approached 1A. He took his hat off, a sign of deference. "Mr. Sterling," O'Connell said quietly, "I wanted to personally apologize for the incident at the gate. I relied on Ms. Miller's report. We work together often, and I trusted her judgment. It was a lapse in my own oversight." Rowan closed his laptop. He looked at the captain. "Captain, how long have you been flying for Zenith?" 15 years, sir." "And in those 15 years, how many times has Stacy Miller kicked a paying passenger off a flight for attitude?" The captain hesitated. He looked down. "A few times, sir. She has a strict tolerance policy." "And did you ever investigate those other times? Or did you just let her run the cabin like her personal kingdom because it was easier for you?" O'Connell didn't answer. The silence was the answer. "You're a good pilot, Captain," Rowan said. "I checked your flight logs while we were taxiing. You're safe. You're on time. But a captain is responsible for the soul of the ship, not just the altitude. You let a toxic culture fester under your nose because you didn't want the hassle." "I understand, sir." "You're on probation, Captain," Rowan said. "When we land in London, you and I are going to have a long meeting with the chief pilot. We're going to review every single security incident report Stacy Miller has filed in the last 5 years. And if I find out you rubber-stamped bias and harassment, you'll be joining her in the unemployment line." "Understood," O'Connell said, his voice tight. "I welcome the review." "Good. Now go fly the plane." The rest of the flight was surreal. The service was impeccable, almost too perfect. David and the other flight attendants were sprinting to refill water glasses before they were even half empty. The passengers were quiet, polite, and terrified. Rowan didn't sleep. He spent the 7 hours drafting a new corporate memo. Subject: the new Zenith standard. To all employees. From Rowan Sterling, CEO. He outlined a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. He instituted a new oversight committee for passenger removals. And he drafted the press release that would go out the moment they landed. He was turning his humiliation into a revolution. But while he was building the future at 35,000 feet, Stacy Miller was facing her past on the ground. The holding cell at the Port Authority police station smelled of bleach and stale coffee. Stacy Miller sat on a metal bench, her purple Zenith scarf unknotted and lying limp in her lap. Her mascara was a disaster. She was still in shock. 1 minute she was the queen of the cabin, sipping illegally poured champagne. The next, she was being fingerprinted like a common criminal. "This is a mistake," she muttered to the empty room. "He can't do this. I have a union rep. I'm going to sue him. I'm going to sue the department." The heavy door buzzed and clicked open. Officer Kowalski walked in. He didn't look sympathetic. "You're being released on your own recognizance," Kowalski said. Arraignment is set for Tuesday. Charges are filing a false police report and disorderly conduct. The district attorney is also looking into a hate crime enhancement, given the nature of your comments. Hate crime? Stacy stood up, her voice shrill. Are you insane? I was doing my job. He was threatening me. We pulled the terminal tapes, Stacy, Kowalski said dryly. He was standing in line. He showed you his ticket. You got in his face. The video doesn't lie. He handed her a clear plastic bag with her personal effects, her wallet, her keys, and her phone. You can go, Kowalski said, but stay in the state. Stacy snatched the bag. You'll be hearing from my lawyer, and so will that arrogant prick Sterling. She marched out of the cell, feeling a surge of righteous indignation. She convinced herself she was the victim. Just a rich guy throwing his weight around, she thought. The public will side with me. I'm a working-class woman, bullied by a billionaire. She walked into the lobby of the station, dug her phone out, and turned it on. It buzzed. Then it vibrated. Then it nearly exploded. 4052 missed calls. 1200 new text messages. Instagram, 99 plus notifications. Twitter, trending topic as a Zenith Karen. What? Stacy stopped in the middle of the hallway. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She opened Twitter, X. The top trending video was titled, Airline owner arrested by racist flight attendant. Instant karma. It was the video from the cabin. The man in 1K, Mr. Henderson, had filmed it. The video showed everything. It showed Rowan calmly sitting in seat 1A. It showed Stacy screaming, "You people always think you can do whatever you want." It showed Rowan being cuffed. And then, the glorious, high-definition climax. Rowan returning, the revelation of his identity, and Stacy begging for her job. The views were climbing by the second. 2.4 million views. 5.1 million views. Stacy felt bile rise in her throat. She scrolled to the comments. And Fly High 22. OMG, I've flown with her. She was so rude to my elderly mother. Glad she finally got caught. Justice Seeker. The look on her face when she realized he owned the airline is pure gold. Inject this into my veins. Oh, lawyer up. She filed a false report. She's done. Jail time. She opened her email. At the very top, there was a message from Zenith Airways Human Resources. The subject line was simply, Termination Notice. Dear Ms. Miller, effective immediately, your employment with Zenith Airways is terminated for gross misconduct, violation of the Code of Ethics, and bringing the company into disrepute. Your benefits are suspended. Do not attempt to access company property. She had been fired before she even left the police station. Stacy's hands shook so hard she dropped the phone. The screen cracked, a spiderweb fracture right over her own face in the reflection. She stumbled toward the exit doors of the station. She just wanted to go home. She wanted to hide under her covers and wait for this to blow over. But as she pushed open the glass doors to the street, a wall of flashing lights blinded her. Ms. Miller! Ms. Miller! Over here! Stacy, do you regret profiling Rowan Sterling? Stacy, are you a racist? How does it feel to be the most hated woman in America right now? A swarm of paparazzi, freelance stringers, and YouTubers were waiting on the sidewalk. The story was too juicy. The undercover boss trope come to life, but with a racial justice twist. They were hungry for blood. Stacy shielded her eyes. Get away from me. Leave me alone. Did you really tell him to go to the back of the bus? A reporter shouted. I never said that, Stacy screamed, losing her composure entirely. He manipulated the situation. He set me up. I'm the victim here. You're the victim? A reporter laughed. "Lady, we saw the video. You smirked when they handcuffed him." Stacy tried to push through the crowd to get to the taxi stand, but no taxi stopped. The drivers saw the cameras, saw the woman, and kept driving. They knew who she was. The video had traveled fast. Finally, she had to call an Uber. She stood there for 10 minutes, the cameras rolling on her every twitch and sob, while the comments on the live streams roasted her outfit, her hair, and her soul. When the Uber finally arrived, the driver, a young Somali man, looked at her, then looked at his phone, then looked back at her. He rolled down the window. "Stacy Miller." "Yes, just drive." She grabbed the door handle. "Cancel," the driver said. "What?" "I don't feel safe with you in my car," the driver said, his face stone cold. "You might call the police on me." He drove off. The crowd of reporters erupted in laughter. Stacy stood on the curb, the rain starting to fall again, mixing with her tears. It wasn't just a firing, it was an excommunication from society. The karma wasn't just hitting, it was pummeling her. But Stacy, being Stacy, didn't find humility. She found rage. She pulled out her cracked phone and dialed the number of a slimy tabloid lawyer she had seen on TV. "I want to sue," she hissed into the phone, ignoring the cameras. "I want to sue Rowan Sterling for everything he's got. Emotional distress, entrapment. I want to destroy him." She didn't realize that by making that call, she was walking into a trap that Rowan Sterling had already anticipated. She was about to bring a knife to a nuclear war. 3 months had passed since the incident at JFK. In that time, Stacy Miller had not gone quietly into the night. Fueled by desperation and a predatory lawyer named Barry the Bulldog Cohen, she had turned her firing into a media circus. She went on talk shows, crying on demand. She claimed she was the victim of a woke billionaire who staged a security entrapment to humiliate a working-class woman for internet clout. She sued Sterling Holdings and Zenith Airways for $50 million or the charges: wrongful termination, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and defamation. Her narrative was surprisingly effective with a certain demographic. There were "Stand with Stacy" hashtags. A GoFundMe for her legal fees had raised $15,000. She was convinced she was going to win. She believed that Rowan Sterling would cut a check just to make her go away. She was wrong. The setting for the final showdown wasn't a courtroom, but a high-stakes deposition room in a glass skyscraper in Manhattan, Sterling's home turf. Stacy sat at the long mahogany table, wearing a modest pastel suit, looking every bit the innocent victim. Her lawyer, Barry, sat next to her, shuffling papers aggressively. "We are going to crush him," Barry whispered to her. "He didn't identify himself. He disobeyed a crew instruction. The contract of carriage is clear. He baited you, Stacy. Juries hate billionaires who play games with little people." The door opened. Rowan Sterling walked in. He wasn't wearing a hoodie today. He was wearing a bespoke navy suit that cost more than Stacy's car. He didn't have a team of lawyers, just one woman, his general counsel, Eleanor. Rowan sat down opposite Stacy. He didn't look angry. He looked bored. "Let's make this quick," Rowan said, placing a single file folder on the table. Barry, Stacy's lawyer, sneered. "Mr. Sterling, you can't intimidate us. We have the deposition of the captain. We have the flight logs. You disrupted the flight. You provoked my client. We are prepared to go to trial unless you offer a settlement starting at $20 million. Rowan ignored the lawyer. He looked directly at Stacy. "Stacy," Rowan said quietly, "do you know why I bought Zenith Airways?" Stacy blinked. To make money? To show off? Zenith was losing $200 million a year, Rowan said. It was a terrible investment. The fleet is aging, the routes are bad, and the brand is toxic. No sane businessman would touch it. "So you're stupid as well as arrogant," Barry interjected. "I bought it," Rowan continued, his eyes never leaving Stacy's, "for one reason. I bought it because of Flight 804 to Paris 3 years ago." Stacy's face remained blank. The flight number meant nothing to her. She had flown thousands of flights. Rowan opened the folder. He slid a photograph across the table. It was a picture of an elderly black woman. She was dressed in her Sunday best, a floral hat, a nice coat. She looked kind, but frail. "This is Beatrice Sterling," Rowan said. "My mother." Stacy looked at the photo. A flicker of recognition sparked in her eyes, then vanished. "3 years ago," Rowan said, his voice dropping to a terrifyingly low register. "My mother was flying to Paris. It was a trip I bought for her. She was going to see her sister, who was dying of cancer. It was the last time they would ever have a chance to speak." The room went deadly silent. Even Barry stopped shuffling his papers. "She was in seat 2B, Rowan said. Business class. She had a carry-on bag that was slightly too large for the overhead bin. She struggled to lift it because she had arthritis." Stacy's breath hitched. She remembered. "She asked the flight attendant for help," Rowan said. "And the flight attendant told her, 'I am not a baggage handler. If you can't lift it, check it.' My mother tried to explain that her medicine was in the bag. She was confused. She was slow." Rowan leaned forward. "And then the flight attendant decided she was unfit to fly. She claimed my mother was senile, disruptive. She called the gate agent and had my 70-year-old mother removed from the plane. She was left alone in the terminal for 6 hours. She missed the flight. She missed the connection." Rowan paused, letting the weight of the story crush the air out of the room. "My aunt died that night," Rowan whispered. "My mother never got to say goodbye. She never forgave herself. She died of a stroke 6 months later. But before she died, she told me the name of the woman who kicked her off." Rowan pointed a finger at Stacy. "Stacy Miller." Stacy turned white. Ghost white. She pressed her hand to her mouth. I followed protocol. She was confusing the other passengers. You profiled her," Rowan said. "Just like you profiled me. You saw an old black woman and you treated her like garbage. You stole the last goodbye between 2 sisters because you were too lazy to help with a bag." "I didn't know," Stacy sobbed. "I didn't know who she was." "That is exactly the point." Rowan slammed his hand on the table, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Rowan stood up. He buttoned his jacket. "I didn't buy Zenith to save the airline, Stacy. I bought it to find you. I bought it to ensure that you never, ever hold power over another human being again." He looked at the lawyer, Barry. "There will be no settlement," Rowan said. "We are going to trial, and I am going to spend every dime of my fortune dragging this out. I will subpoena every passenger you have ever kicked off. I will bring in character witnesses from 20 years of your employment. I will air every dirty secret, every complaint, and every act of cruelty you have ever committed on national television." Rowan looked back at Stacy, who was now trembling uncontrollably. "You wanted to be famous, Stacy. I'm going to make you famous. I'm going to make you the face of everything that is wrong with the service industry. By the time I'm done, you won't be able to get a job working the drive-thru at a taco stand." He turned to leave. "Wait!" Stacy screamed. She lunged across the table, grabbing his sleeve. "Please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your mother. Please don't ruin me. I have nothing left." Rowan looked at her hand on his sleeve. He gently, but firmly, removed it. "You ruined yourself, Stacy," he said. "The moment you decided kindness was optional." He walked out of the room. The legal battle lasted 6 months. It was brutal. True to his word, Rowan's legal team exposed everything. They found dozens of other passengers, people of all races and backgrounds, who Stacy had bullied. They testified. The media narrative flipped overnight. The Stand with Stacy hashtags vanished, replaced by #Justice for Beatrice. Stacy lost the lawsuit. The judge dismissed her claims with prejudice and ordered her to pay Sterling's legal fees, a sum that bankrupted her. She lost her house. She lost her car. She moved into a small apartment in New Jersey with her sister, who barely spoke to her. Zenith Airways, under Rowan's leadership, was rebranded as Horizon Air. The new motto was printed on every ticket: "Humanity First." Rowan implemented a training program named after his mother, the Beatrice Standard. It taught empathy, de-escalation, and unconscious bias training. It became the gold standard for the industry. 1 year later, Rowan was walking through JFK Terminal 4. He was wearing a suit this time, inspecting the new check-in kiosks. He stopped at a coffee shop near the entrance to grab an espresso. The woman behind the counter had her back to him, scrubbing a stain off the counter. She looked tired. Her uniform was ill-fitting. "Excuse me," Rowan said. "Can I get a double espresso?" The woman turned around. It was Stacy. She looked 10 years older. Her hair was graying. The fire in her eyes was gone, replaced by a dull, hollow exhaustion. She froze when she saw him. The cup she was holding rattled against the saucer. "Mr. Sterling," she whispered. Rowan looked at her. He didn't feel anger anymore. He didn't feel triumph. He just felt a quiet sense of closure. "Hello, Stacy," he said. She looked down at the counter. "I can make that for you, on the house." "No," Rowan said. He pulled out his wallet and placed a $20 bill on the counter. "I pay for what I get. Keep the change." He took the coffee. "Stacy?" he asked. She looked up, tears brimming in her eyes. "Yes?" "Be kind to the next customer," Rowan said. "You never know who they might be." He turned and walked away toward the Horizon Air Gate, leaving Stacy Miller standing amidst the steam and the noise of the terminal, holding the $20, finally understanding the lesson that had cost her everything. The karma was complete. It wasn't just about punishment. It was about change. And as Rowan boarded his plane, he looked out the window at the clouds, and for the first time in 3 years he whispered, "We got her, Mom. We got her." And that is the brutal, satisfying saga of Stacy Miller and Rowan Sterling. It serves as a powerful reminder that arrogance is a dangerous game. Stacy thought her uniform gave her the right to belittle others, but she learned the ultimate lesson: never judge a book by its cover, and never underestimate a son fighting for his mother's memory. Karma might be slow, but as we saw today, it never misses. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments. Do you think Rowan went too far by bankrupting her? Or was this the perfect justice for what she did to his family? If you enjoyed this story of high-altitude revenge, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thanks for watching. And remember, treat everyone with kindness. You never know who you're talking to.